How you guys doing today? Good. All right. Oh my gosh, how nice is it to be back at Frightmare? I was a little worried, to be honest with you. I didn't know if this was actually going to happen. So I'm so glad it's happening. So happy to see all of you guys, and I know you're happy to see everybody else, including our next guest. I'm really, really excited about this because this is not somebody that you see at very many conventions at all. And she is fantastic, and I don't know if you guys have met her yet, but you're going to get to know her a little bit more now. So let's give a big Texas round of applause for Melinda Clarke.
You're in Texas.
It's true.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we are so happy to have you here because, like I was just saying, you don't do a whole lot of convention appearances, so we're honored to have you here.
I'll go if I'm invited.
Oh, yeah.
But no, I think the last one, hey guys, hi Steve.
Yeah.
Was 2 years ago, and then this thing called a pandemic happened, and so I'm really, really grateful to be here. I think we're all pretty grateful. We all went through something collectively that's pretty unprecedented, and so yeah, it's great to be here. It's great to see some faces and celebrate something that I did in 1992, came out in 93, and yeah, I just love all the love. And I'd like to see your smiling faces more, but you know, we'll get there this time next year, right?
Absolutely, and it's got to be nice to just be back in front of people because you know this is the coolest job in the world. You get loved on all weekend. Right?
right. No, and to be honest, a few months ago, I've been, you know, we're all paying attention and being kind of vigilant about how is it going to be safe, and I want to thank everyone for wearing masks and just doing pictures with a partition, and you know, I think we're all in this together, and I really appreciate everyone for doing that, so thanks.
Absolutely, and so of course you've got a table out there, you've got some really cool things for sale, but you know, you gotta love the who doesn't love this poster for Return of the Living Dead 3? It's amazing, and I know people bring those to you, they bring pictures, they bring all kinds of things, but what's the most interesting thing you've had to sign this weekend so far?
Well, Steven, right here.
Oh.
He actually brought a, how tall is it?
2 feet tall.
2 feet tall, handmade statue of, I mean, and let me, you know, Steve Johnson was the creator of this costume, and Bill Corso, if you guys know, he actually was the one who applied it, and you know, he's huge now. But it was over 100 different applications. It took 8 hours the first time. At one point, their lowest was 5 hours, and then you'd shoot for 15, and then 2 hours just to get it taken off, and my skin was a wreck and all that. So just even doing a statue, how long was the statue?
How long?
How long did you take to make it?
I think whenever I started working on it and really got into it, it took me about a month, and I only finished it Monday of this week.
Okay, because your ex broke the other one. Yeah. That guy. Don't set Julie on him.
That's so cool though, and I know people have a lot of questions about this film. Of course, you answered one of them about how long it took to get that makeup on. I can't even imagine. So how did you pass the time while they were messing?
Okay, so
because you didn't have fun.
I learned this actually. So when you know, and it wasn't just the actual application, but the special effects house. I had to go in and do the. I don't think they were using alginate. You guys, if you know special effects, you know how they make prosthetics. I feel like I did a full, true body cast with plaster. And, you know, I was young, and you have to be able to be brave, and you know, with these gentlemen, it's like, they need you to be fully nude, and you stand like this, and they have to do prosthetics of everything, and so that was a process. They have to make them, and then you have to do the face thing, and with all the plaster. So it was back in the day that I don't think we were using alginate. Maybe, I'm not sure. I can't remember that part. So that took them years. But as we were doing that, because that's painstaking work in itself, that kind of, you know, detailed craftsmanship that these artists are working on, and Bill Corso would have movies playing on cassette tape he would listen to just, I remember Defending Your Life. He just loved listening to the Albert Brooks movie. And I gained a different respect and understanding of listening to movies instead of having to watch them. You hear different things. He's the first one who introduced me to do you guys remember the jerky tapes? The prankster tapes? They were real pranks, and they were passed around kind of underground from people to people, and he was one of those guys, because of the kind of work he did, he would just listen to anything on tape, audio. It was like before podcasting.
Oh, yeah.
He would listen to the movies, or he would listen to things before audiobooks came out, all that. So that's how he would pass the time, and I think and I just would giggle, and so we would listen to anything, be it, we could listen to Star Wars, we could listen to, like I said, Defending Your Life, or just any movie of that time. That was how we passed the time.
Yeah. Well, one thing I love about these shows, and we're going to open it up in just a moment for questions, but one thing I love is there's so many creative people here, and people that aspire to do what you do. And now you had an interesting journey because you had creatives as parents, and going into modeling and then acting, and so you probably had a different support system. But what would you say to people that want to do what you do? Because it's certainly not easy, but it can be done.
Okay, so I love that I never modeled, honestly. I know that somehow, it's so funny how IMDb gets certain things. Like, I never was a Bond girl. I think it's so funny, these things that they put out there. But I never turned down, I don't think I turned down the role of Scream, in Tatum and Scream or something. Anyway, I think it's one of those things that Dustin Hoffman said it well in, in the Actors Studio with James Hampton. He said, as an actor, he didn't know any other. He just needed, he said if he was lucky enough to get successful, I guess, to do film and such. He said, but if he hadn't made it in film, he would be doing dinner theater. That's how much he needed to do it. I don't know if I have it that much, just kidding. But my father was an actor, and my mother was a ballerina, and I just never saw myself doing anything other. My favorite love, honestly, was musical theater when I was a teenager, and I was, Maria in West Side Story, and Maria in Sound of Music, and I loved doing that, and I quickly found out that I wasn't as great of a singer as I thought I was, because I had kind of a deeper voice, but then I'd sing on stage like I feel pretty. I sounded kind of different. Anyway, I was getting more roles as an evil character. So I think one of the things that it's important to do in this industry is you just have to do it for the love of it, not with expectations. And that's honestly something that I've been working on, just even as an adult, doing something and living in the moment. Like right now I'm talking to you all. It's not about anything else. It's not even about 10 minutes from now. It's, the past is the past, the future doesn't exist. So I think we kind of get into, because when you do get some success, then it's like, I gotta keep up. And I start comparing myself to other actors, and they're in the pages of InStyle, and and that's when it becomes a game of hungry hippos and not very fun. So figure out what your passions are, always educate, classes, be around people, but I think also to believe is brave as an actor. This role specifically, there were a lot of firsts. I was quite young. If I was 92, I would have been 22, 23. And it wasn't my very first movie, it was my second movie. And there were some uncomfortable, the part where Julie's in the strappy thing, and the first time I had to be nude, it's not like, yay, this is fun to do. Let me show this. But then at some point there is that feeling of just, I don't know, there's a lot of freedom in it. And this movie was really difficult. For some reason I feel like it was 3 weeks or a month. But the truth is, it's a job. Show up, know your dialogue, be prepared, and just when you think, oh, woe is me, it's a long day, there's somebody who's on that set who's done it longer than you. It's really just about the attitude, and it's a very, very easy, and it hasn't, not even just this industry, it's very easy to say, God, I have to do this, instead of, I get to do this. So I would say it's definitely an industry that's not for the faint of heart. It can be very challenging to have relationships. The hours can be really long, especially if it's, but it's everything's an attitude. Everything in life is an attitude. So I like to say we're, at any given moment, we're either acting in love or fear. And if love is graciousness and humbleness, and fear is anger and stress and all that stuff, let's all stay in the positive.
Yeah.
So, and also, if you do become an actor, I always tell people, get used to the rejection, don't take it personally. They say no to everyone but one, so you're in good company if you get told no. Right? Is that enough? By the way, guys, I gotta say this. I'm doing a podcast right now with Rachel Bilson, the OC rewatch podcast. I don't know if you've all watched the OC, but I've been in the mode of talking, so can you tell? I was actually kind of nervous to do a podcast because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm used to dialogue. I'm used to memorizing everything. And it's really been, I was very nervous, to be honest, to do it. I didn't know what I was doing. And it's really been such a wonderful thing that came out of the pandemic, something we could do remotely from home and talk about something. And so, yeah, I like to talk. Mindy Mouth, that's my name.
I love it. Well, it makes my job easier.
Right.
And I know everybody loves to hear from you, but sometimes it's tough. Sometimes you'll get guests, and you probably have guests on the podcast that you kind of pull it out of them a little bit.
They're like, do you remember that moment? No. Well, what were you feeling in that moment? I really don't remember. I was smoking pot. No, actually, Rachel, that was a quote. But anyway, welcome to the OC, bitches. That's the name.
There we go. All right, so who is going to be the brave first one with a good question? All the way in the back.
Hi.
Hello.
I have a two-part question. Who was your favorite character that you portrayed, and why was it Julie Cooper from the OC?
Okay. Well, okay, so because I'm actually doing, I'll tell you one of the reasons. Yes, Julie is probably the number one most fun I've had. I love Lady Heather because of the way it was written, that it was such a developed, like she's way more evolved and elevated and like a human behavioralist and just a rad fucking woman, sorry. And it was just written so well. Julie, it was one of the most sublime times in my life where I would get up and I couldn't wait to get to work. And because I have to go back for this rewatch podcast, I'm now looking at it with different eyes. I have a daughter who's 21 now, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't think it was such a big deal what Julie was doing to her daughter on the OC back then, but now I'm like, oh my God, Julie, you're really bad. And now I understand like like what she was doing to her teenage daughter. My daughter said, I'm much better now. During the teen years, there were some bumps, and anyway. But it was just one of those times that the cast worked, and it was really magical, and there was it was the first time I got to do dramedy and comedy, and very, very free. And Julie probably is the most, I started taking chances. When you're doing long form television and you have 9 to 10 months to do a show, you take the opportunity, and it's my job to show up and hopefully inspire the writers to write for you, because showrunners, when they have to figure out what to do in the next season, or maybe if you're lucky enough to do a second season, and 3, 4, 5, 6, and on, if the writer stops being inspired to write for your character, see ya. So I took it as an experience to say, okay, what can I do? I'm not just doing my dialogue and dialing it in. It's what can I do and make some choices and be funny, even if it doesn't work, be big, be small, do something that they think is like, so it was very freeing and kind of goofy like I am. So she's the closest to me in that sense of humor, but I based her on somebody. she's an actress, and I'm not going to say her name, but I base her on somebody who's probably the biggest egomaniac I've ever met, who's that person who actually, she may have come to a couple conventions, I'm not sure, but she would be that person who go, hi, oh my gosh, I love you, you look so amazing, and oh my god, did you see what she was wearing? It was ugly. Like, she would do that voice thing, so I just had a lot of fun. That's a long-winded answer, but we're here for an hour.
Yeah. Oh no, it's fun to hear about all this stuff, you know, and you know, especially now that you have kids, so you have like insight of that. What does your daughter make of what you do?
So my daughter's funny. She's okay. I'm gonna promote her. She's got the funniest TikTok account at CGMIR, M-I-R, at CGMIR. So she's obsessed with Vampire Diaries. And growing up, I always said, you know, she has a poster over her bed of the cast. My daughter was 3 when the OC started and 7 when it finished. She's got a poster and you know, Adam Brody used to steal her scooter, and he's like, CG, I want my scooter, and Ben McKenzie writes, CG, I'll always love you, and everybody, it's over her bed, right? She's been there since she was very young, but she refused to watch the show. Why? Because I don't want to see my mom making out with young guys. So then she watches like Pretty Little Liars, and then all of a sudden she watches Vampire Diaries, and her teen crush is Ian Somerhalder, and her celebrity crush. And so her whole TikTok account is, she comes up to me in her TikTok and says, hey mom, what was it like to make out with Ian Somerhalder? And my mom won't tell me what it's like to make out with Ian Somerhalder. So it's like, the whole thing is, so Ian just got a TikTok account, and he said, hey, yeah, back when we were kids. So everybody's like freaking out because I won't tell them. Anyway, I digress. But I said, but wait, you watched Vampire Diaries and you won't watch the OC. And she's like, I know, and you were really bad. And I was like, yeah, I was really, really bad in Vampire Diaries. So she finally watched it when she was 18, because I kept saying, you know, it's not just a regular teen show. It's got this meta humor, and it's very humorous. And we had her on the podcast, and she was able to say, I said, am I like Julie Cooper? And she's like, no, well, sometimes. So she's, at one point when I was doing the show Nikita, I was shooting in Toronto, and it was really difficult. She was 10, and she had to fly with me, but she stayed in Los Angeles with her dad, and I flew back and forth. And she, for the longest time, wanted to be an actress, and at one point she's like, hey mom, I got myself an agent. I came back from Toronto, and I said, what? It turns out one of the moms in her dance class is a kid's agent, and she did a monologue from Talk Radio, the play, an Eric Bogosian play, and she got herself an agent. And I said, okay, if you want to be an actor, this goes back to the advice. I said, you got to study, you got to be serious, you got to memorize dialogue, you got to. She's like, what? I just want to be like a Disney star. And like, it doesn't work that way. You still have to work hard. And all of a sudden, when she turned 15, she said, I want to be a criminologist and work for the FBI. And I went, what happened to actors? And she said, I see what you go through. No, I don't want to do that. So she is very much a fan now. And she's like, I'm finally over you making out with Ian and Chris Pratt and all those people.
There are worse jobs. All right, who's got another one here? I think I saw him. Hand start to twitch. There we go.
Okay, this is something I have prepared. I read somewhere that you auditioned for a character on a certain TV show and didn't get the part. After reading that, I thought to myself, I would have watched that show if Melinda Clarke was on it. Have there been any roles that you came close to that didn't quite pan out? And I can say that they should have chosen me.
Oh. Well, yeah, hundreds of roles. And now I was just explaining this to Brian. And Brian, who's the actress that she was in Once Upon a Time? She played the evil witch.
Lana Parrilla.
Yeah. she and I, so there's a thing called on television, that was particularly, I just come off the OC, and one of the writers from the OC was doing a show, and I'm not gonna remember the name because I don't think it lasted, but Alan Ball, who did 6 Feet Under, was doing it. So when they auditioned so many ladies for roles, you could audition 200 people, but it can come down to 6 people, and you have to test. What testing is a test deal when you actually, it might have 2 people, it might have 5 people, where you actually sign the contract before you do your final audition for the studio, which would be, in this case, maybe Warner Brothers. And you've got Peter Roth, the executives, and you have, maybe 16 people from Warner Brothers, and you have to audition for them, and you have to have, and they decide, okay, they're good enough, they get to pass tomorrow, now you're gonna audition for the studio and the network, which would be like all of Warner Brothers and now all of Fox. So you got 36 people in suits, and one of the most nerve-wracking things. It came down to between me and, say it again, Brian? Lana. And I thought I had it in the bag. And for the most part, it's between one person or the other, for some reason I took that one really hard. And that goes back to, I'm coming off of a show, and I'm on the show, the OC, I've got a mortgage, I need to pay, I need a show. And I wasn't necessarily doing it, there's other factors that make it not such an enjoyable thing. And it wasn't my best moment. I called up the writer, and I was like, yeah, what the hell? And it's kind of embarrassing now. And he was like, we just didn't, they went a different way. Or it just wasn't you, it was somebody else. It's really important. I mean, you just can't, you've literally got to move on and let go of things like that. When Fastlane, do you remember a show called Fastlane with Mick G? That's actually, we had him on the podcast recently, and we were able to kind of break down the fact that I met him on Fastlane, and he wanted me to play that role and play that role, and I wasn't well known to, and that was a Warner Brothers thing, and they gave it to Tiffany Amber Thiessen because they wanted a name, and that's still held some power. So, and he was like, I wanted you, but it went to this girl, but losing out to that led to me being in their next show, the OC, and then led to me being in their next show, the Nikita. So it was all under Warner Brothers. So you tend to get remembered, and that's why it's really important to have a good reputation and be professional and all that. So yes, maybe you can get one. I mean, there's one job out of 100, so.
Yeah, that's crazy odds.
I know.
But actually, probably makes us feel better, right? We go for things all the time, and it's probably not the same level or percentage of rejection, so be happy.
That's the other thing, think about we've been in a pandemic, and we all want to work, and think of all of the thousands of even working actors. And here's another thing, it was just an observation. There was such a time when film actors were film actors. Film actors are all doing television now because films are few and far between now, especially big action films. But then there's just so much content, so it feels like, can't we all work? But when Hollywood's just getting back to work, it's all a new normal. It's a very social thing being on set. We shoot the shit, we hang out, we talk. You can't just walk up to a script supervisor and talk to them now. You have to be you have to go, okay, you go sit in a pod, or you have to be in your pod. It's not a gregarious social thing anymore. It's because of COVID. So I hope it gets back to normal. Well, there's the new normal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, who's got another good question? There we are.
Your episode of King of the Hill. Yeah,
King of the Hill.
Oh my gosh! I got to do that because my friend Joe Boucher was the producer. And what did I play, Dorothy?
With John Redcorn.
I'm trying to remember, we'll have to remember, but,
Shireen, Sherilyn, anybody remember anybody watching?
the character was Sherilyn?
Something like that. Or you were Cherry, like the dancer that got with John Redcorn.
Okay, we'll have to go back. Now, I'm pretty good at some of the characters, but you just stumped me right there. But I do love voiceover, and there's only a few things. I've only done a few voiceover things. One was an animatrix voiceover, which was really fascinating because it was a Korean animator. And in Korea, they animate before the dialogue. So I had to actually do the dialogue to the character, which was different. Usually I think it's the reverse. The actors can act and then the animators can animate to it. That one was super surreal, like a wild, wild dream. And the other one, I got to be a voice on I haven't done as much as I would like. Do you remember the Avatar Last Airbender? I was the haiku teacher and that. And then, here's one I love for a Trump Hotel commercial. The Bakar Hotel Casino. And so, it says, do you know that guilty feeling you get from a night of pure unadulterated pleasure? Neither do we. The Bakar Hotel Casino and Spa now open in Atlantic City. I remember that one.
You never got asked to reprise Jessica Priest in one of those fun video games in the 90s?
Well, she became like a human taco. She was dead, right?
She became She Spawn eventually.
That's true. She might be in hell, right? So
Well, you are in Texas.
Right. So Mark DePay, who's the director, he actually, our kids went to the same school, and I would run into him, and I'm not remembering the details, but I remember that the film got into a lawsuit, and where they could not make a sequel of any kind. And also, my character was created for the film. It was based on Chapel, which was totally different, right? Yeah. So, and I hear there's going to be a remake. Have I heard that they're doing a Spawn?
Yeah, it's on and off.
Okay, yeah. So I know that it was locked up in some kind of litigation for years and years and years. But no, that would be cool. That costume was the craziest costume. Some of the most amazing costume makers, builders as they call them. It was, like. So imagine they're like, okay, they're gonna build these pants for you, but they want it to look literally like liquid metal. But the costume kept, they'd have to go, oh, we need it to look a certain way, and it gets smaller and smaller, bustier, whatever. And I remember somehow I found out the cost of the costume. It was over $50,000. I don't know, I'm throwing out. I know it's like uncouth to talk about money, but I'm like, just the costumes alone were like, just for me. And just building all that stuff because it was so like labor intensive. Can you imagine what it was for the clown? Anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, and here's another piece of that. So you guys, if you watch Spawn, you remember the scene where John Leguizamo, the clown, he goes over and there's a pizza with maggots on it. So it was the first time he got paid $1 million for a film. And he told them, they were like, how are we gonna do this? And he goes, I'll give you one take and I'm biting into that pizza with real maggots on it. And he did. One take and it dead.
Oh my goodness.
What will you do for $1 million?
They didn't let you keep any of your guns or anything?
Well, they don't let you do that, but I became it's crazy that year of 96, that was 96 into 97, I did a show called Soldier of Fortune with Jerry Bruckheimer, his very first TV show, and we had to train, we had to learn how to shoot with MP5s, and I became quite proficient with that because they actually let us, it's so funny I'm telling you this because Harry Humphreys, who's now dear friend and godfather to my daughter, he was Bruckheimer's tech advisor. He's one of the original Navy SEALs and actually original frogmen before they were SEALs in Vietnam, and with Dick Marchenko and Vietnam. And so he became Bruckheimer's tech advisor, starting with The Rock went on to Black Hawk Down, now all the Michael Bay films. In fact, he's picking me up and taking me to dinner tonight. But he's the one that taught me in '97 how to work with weapons, and I learned to shoot shotguns with the SWAT team from Bellflower, and that's why I don't have hearing in my right ear right now, but it's kind of bad. But no, I was very afraid of the firearms situation, but I actually did shot better than the SWAT team because I had some ballet dance training. But no, it's kind of, it can be kind of fun. I liked it as a sport, but I don't own one.
Yeah, they're pretty protective of all the stuff now because they've realized that all the props, all the costumes, everything is a collectible now. So do you really get to keep anything?
Oh yeah, okay. So for Living Dead, those are my own. So you can say so the belt is mine, and the cross was mine, and and the shorts were mine. I actually brought them in, and we did that. And then I had different versions of it, but I got to tell you, they were all, because you guys know what blood is made of, Carol syrup and Hershey's or whatever they make the concoction of. And I remember a lot of that jewelry was mine, and because when I did that film, I had just finished doing a play called Vicious, which was the original material written about Sid Vicious and Nancy Spungen, and the movie Sid and Nancy was based on that play and became that movie. And I had just finished playing Nancy Spungen on stage, like a heroin addict, and just all that kind of rock and roll stuff. And I think when they were trying to figure this out, I brought in some of my own stuff. And we just kind of created it, like, what would you wear? And we created it kind of together. And so for the longest time, all of that jewelry being mine, I brought it home, and it had that blood on it for years. And I do think I still have the cross, and I think the belt just got, I can't remember exactly, but I may have let somebody borrow the shorts, but I wasn't thinking it would be, but I think I have the cross. But yes, I do take things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I do take things.
Get away with what you can. All right, go ahead, Ed.
I do have a question. What are the techniques that you use? And because when you're reading a script, it doesn't have like a voice yet. So how do you bring it a reality? And what are some of the things you brought to the table? And people are like, let's not do that.
On The Living Dead? On anything?
Yeah. So when you're reading a script, you're like, how do you use that to bring about a real live person? Like use personalities
Well, if it's really well written, because then that's when CSI pops into my head. The Lady Heather script, I remember getting that audition. Oh, now these are the days when I could memorize like that. But if it's really well written, like I got the audition at 7 p.m. One day, and I had to be there at 10 a.m. the next day. And the dialogue was so well written, and somebody asked me if there was research, and I said I didn't have to do any research because it was all in the writing. And she just, some things just come naturally. I don't know, it's weird, especially with television, that happens so quick. So a lot of film actors have, if you think of like Daniel Day-Lewis, he spent over a year just preparing to be Abraham Lincoln and get his voice down, or maybe longer even. And a lot in television, you've got to be prepared to audition the next day and do it like it's on camera. And it's hard. It can be difficult. One of the things that I think a lot of young actors do is overact, make too big of choices. Like when I'm watching the OC now, I can see, I'm like, okay, that was a little much. But they used it. You can, sometimes it was bigger than life, but I thought that the character was bigger than life. I think that this was a little overacted sometimes, but it kind of lent itself to it. I don't know. It can be kind of corny, but for instance, I think when you're playing, and also villains don't think they're villains. You don't play a villain like, hey, like an arch, So I think, and also one of the best things, when in doubt, do nothing. Because there's different mediums. If you're on stage and you have to make sure that somebody at the back of the house hears you, I'm going to project in a different way. But if I've got a camera right here, less is more. So it's important to know your technical, to know what's required for each medium. And there might be something different for the reading of a commercial. For a voiceover, there might be something different for, I don't know, I mean, like Julie was way, oh, you know what? Also with comedy, you don't play comedy. It's, you know what I mean? It's just, you do it like, you know, yeah, playing for a joke or indicating a joke, like, here I'm gonna be funny, haha, it doesn't work. You play, when I did Seinfeld, I did an episode called The Muffin Tops, and I was on the bus where they're trying to get rid of the stumps, and Michael Richards is doing this crazy stuff, and Jerry would laugh, and he couldn't, and Michael would get pissed. He approached his comedy absolute seriousness. There was nothing like ha 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 about it. It was just playing a character. And he'd get mad actually if people would laugh at him. So you approach comedy the same way but you try to do it with truth. For me now, as I've gotten older, I need to memorize dialogue, like backwards and forwards, like you know the alphabet. And so I actually ask for a lot of preparation, so then I can get if I cannot think about the words, then I can really relax. Otherwise, I feel like so that for me, that's just one of the biggest things. But yeah, a lot of it is experiment and rehearsal and preparation.
Any improv?
Okay, so on the OC, I started learning how to do a little bit of that because Adam Brody was so good at that. And so as long as you did the script is written, we call putting in a button on it. You know, if it's like you finish the scene and then you add a little funny thing at the end. I was able to do that on Entourage. Malcolm McDowell's here, and I got to play his wife on Entourage. I got to say hello to him. If you guys see him, tell him I'd like to say him. But on Entourage, I did that quite a few times, and it actually made it on. It's like I had one line with Ari Gold where I'm like, Ari, I have to get to pole dancing class. I'm late for pole dancing class. And I was taking a pole dancing class at the time, and I really was going to one that day. So I threw it out there, and it makes the cut. But improv, if you can, I think everyone on the planet should take like a Groundlings improv class or a Second City. It's super fun. And it actually really teaches you not what to say, but how to listen. And listening is probably one of the more difficult things for me to do. But as an actor, if you can actually listen and react to that listening, that's a real superpower.
Mm-hmm. Just out of curiosity, how many of you guys have done an improv class or taken improv classes? A couple people?
They're hard.
Yeah.
People who are. In fact, I was just in Chicago to visit my daughter, and we went to Second City to go see an improv. And what is it? Excuse me. That hurt. That's right. So I didn't want to blow anything. We watch, and you can see how much fun they're having, and just random. And I love Whose Line Is It Anyway, and like Wayne Brady. Like he's just amazing. Those guys, but. I'm just in awe of people that can do that. It's just amazing. But you can just see how much they bust each other up, and they're just giggling, and that's half the fun, right? Who's gonna like do a blooper and giggle and stuff? So.
Oh, love that. Well, since we're coming upon spooky season, and of course we all like scary movies here, are you a big scary movie fan? No? That's good.
Okay, so I'm not. Okay, so. I really appreciate movies like The Exorcist or something that's really mental, but the freakiest thing would be like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I can't. And so even I've told a few of you during the Return of the Living Dead, there's the puppeteers. There were like 4 different special effects houses doing Steve Johnson was responsible just for my character, and somebody else was responsible for the crazy. Tall, skinny, freaky zombie. Yeah, the one who asked me if he was a true homeless person and he asked for a limo to set. I think I'd heard that, but I don't know. But there was a famous zombie, you know, they're all, he was stuck to himself, and during the scene, the zombie separates his head from the shoulder. Scared the hell out of me during the scene. And I went, and so that was not even acting, but my daughter loves horror films, and I like the psychological ones, but anything with like Saw or anything that has to do with things like that, or things that are kind of gory, or, I mean, I have a certain level that I can do, but I get, no, it's, so I hope, hats off to you.
So is that kind of funny when people approach you in costume and then you see a leather face come at you?
It can be really unnerving, yeah.
Oh, love it. All right, who else has a good question
I
for her?
have a question.
There you go.
You mentioned it briefly about your mom being a ballerina and that you had ballet training. How far did you take it, and did that inform your mannerisms or your behavior, your body language?
Well, you know, if I had, thank you for asking. My mother, Patty, was a ballet dancer and had a dance school, and I grew up dancing. She taught RAD, which is Royal Academy of Dance, and I wish that, I would suggest that your mom shouldn't be your teacher, because she made me call her Mrs. Clarke in class, and because I was kind of a brat, and you know, but if there was one thing, I had the feet for it. I didn't take it too much further. I got into acting and more musical theater, but I really found that I wish I'd had more discipline to do it, because I really loved it. But yes, I think, to me, the most beautiful, you know, this ballerina, you see these dame ballerina women in their 70s. They don't need plastic surgery. They've been holding themselves up, you know, for a long time. But it is an interesting thing, like, you know, in this old studio system, they gave all the actors movement and dance and singing and how to hold themselves. And it does give one a lot of body awareness on stage. Now, I'm sitting here with kind of slouching. I tend to actually slouch, and I've learned how not to do it on camera, because there's nothing worse than, you can actually see it sometimes where I slouch and I have hyperextended legs. So being aware of a body is very much more of like the way the British teach. You know, outward in, and the method American acting is kind of inward out. But I have found that I love characters, and I get a lot of character based on costume. So you're bringing that to, the scene where, you know, we shot this movie so quickly, but you're in the full regalia, and Julie's turned into this creature, and she drags the gangbanger and rips out his spine and comes back, you know, when she first comes out and I did this move. I don't know where that came from, but it came from this idea that here she's got all these things, and I just kind of worked out, like choreographed, how I've got this rock and I've got this thing and I've got this, so we want to kind of do some kind of a reveal. And it was this, I did essentially just a creepy dance move, right? That, you know, so, and that probably came from my dance training. There you go. Are you a dancer?
Well, weren't we all?
Right. Well, I love tap, and I loved,
that was the best one.
Yeah.
Tap dancing.
Tap, yeah. I loved it, yeah. I wish I'd stuck with it, but honestly, I'm more disciplined in my life today than I was back then, you know, so.
Thank you.
I'm not a dancer, by the way. Two giant left feet. And speaking of slouching, I just noticed we have another camera there, so I was like,
I know, I'm saying.
I don't want to block you, but I'm over here slouching. I saw another hand back over there. Yes, go ahead.
When did you realize that Living Dead 3 had become a cult classic?
This is a good story. So, please don't take this next story as anything in a negative, but when I did that, so in the early 90s, this was post Friday the 13th, this is pre-Scream. The early 90s, horror films were low budge, they weren't the highest quality, they certainly weren't studio films, they weren't, so in fact, when I first had this audition, I was like, oh, I don't know, look at that. And I had a friend of mine I was doing a play with at the time, and he was like, what? That would be great on your resume, because I just didn't, we're young, we don't know. I was like, really? Oh, okay. So we did the movie, and it had a certain response. Brian Usna actually offered me a film directly after, and all I can remember is that the character, it wasn't the female zombie, it wasn't the heroine of the film, it was, this is the image I remember, a woman who literally gets dismembered, all of her limbs are getting chopped off, and it just felt too exploitive and just not me, and I was very conscious of, the term scream queen was out and about, and I was like, I don't want to be a scream queen. And for the longest time, I didn't, the word cult would never came up. I want to say, so in 1996, I did a film with Robert Englund and Doug Bradley in Spain called The Killer Tongue. So I became friends with them. I'd actually met Robert early years before, but we worked together. And I want to say it was the early 2000s somewhere, a good 10, 12 years later, maybe a little bit longer. And I get a call from him, and I think it was a voicemail actually. Melinda! Because you know Robert. I'm in Argentina, and I'm looking at a 20-foot poster of you from the living dead. It's a cult, fantastic movie, oh my God. And I was like, what? He was like, you have no idea, they love this movie down here. And just going on about the living dead. I had no idea. And then that's when I was like, well, should I be doing conventions? And I didn't, I think the first convention I haven't, honestly, I think it's just kind of grown. I don't know, you guys tell me the cult status of it. So we're talking almost 30 years ago. What? Yeah, so that's when I kind of was aware that things had been kind of growing, and probably about, I feel like I did a convention maybe during the 25th. Was there a 25th? I don't know. The film isn't big enough to have like, whoa, it's a 25th anniversary, but I feel like somebody, about 5 or, in the past decade, it's kind of grown a little bit, yeah. And yeah.
Well, and the people who love it absolutely love it. The fans of it are, their first one and second one, well, of course, the first one's classic, but then this could have been titled something else, right? And I think that was that originally the idea?
I think if, I'm gonna remember his name, Joe Penny, who wrote it. They had, from what I understand, I think they had different writers pitch different ideas, and they really, Brian Usna, or they grabbed onto the Romeo and Juliet concept, and I believe that's what they really were attracted to in this. I had another thought that I was going to say, and I just lost my train of thought. Okay, next question. No.
But it could have been something titled something completely different without Living Dead at all, right? And I think that was an idea at one point, right?
I don't know that. Is that in the commentary? Have any of you listened to the commentary that's on the... I don't know.
Yeah, according to an interview with J. Trevor Edmond, he said that they got a lot of pushback because it was supposed to be its own film, but they decided that it might get more recognition if it was attached to the Return of the Living Dead 3 franchise, or the Return of the Living Dead franchise, which is why they chose to name it Part 3, even though in a way it's its own film.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the only thing they continue with the tradition of the trioxin, and there's that history in it. Those are details that I was never aware of. I mean, when I got the audition, it was Return of the Living Dead 3. And it was never anything other than that from my point. Hi, honey. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I love these costumes. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I actually have a question about your experience filming on Firefly.
Firefly.
Ooh, yeah. Firefly. That was I'm trying to think. I know, I came on and I got to be, and what a wonderful set. And I remember talking to Joss Whedon and saying, I said, you've created a really wonderful, I guess I could say this now, but I said I wanted to compliment him. I said, this is such a nice cast, because when you're a guest star on a show, a lot of times I'm the guest at the party, and I've been on shows that either weren't happy or the number one on the call sheet can be kind of intimidating. The lead of a show can kind of set the tone. But I remember saying, like, Nathan Fillion and Gina Torres and Morena, they were just such lovely, lovely, lovely people, and saying, you've created such a great, great cast of, what a great ensemble, what a great feeling. Mm-hmm. And he said, yeah, I'll never do another show called Angel or Buffy again. Like, kind of a dig at meaning just having a name, which means, but yeah, now we know what's going on with that guy. Sorry. Well, sorry. Oh my gosh. So anyway, my episode. Sorry. But I came on, but that being said, I came on when they had just found out that they were being canceled. Oh. So that's what I was going to say. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you for keeping me on track. And so there was, that's really frustrating, especially for a show that had such a following. And I do remember that we went out to, Mandy, the whore with the heart of gold. And then there's the dominatrix and the madam. But I remember shooting, and Nathan is just one of the sweetest guys on the planet. And but I remember shooting, you go out to Lancaster, which is just kind of northeast of LA, and to shoot the desert areas, and it was really, it's always fun to dress up, and we've got these elaborate costumes, and they're kind of, they're Indian inspired, Old West, and and I got to use my rifle skills to shoot again. But I do know that it was a lovely experience, but yeah, they were really disappointed. I felt like my episode was the last one shooting. I know it wasn't the last episode, but I feel like it was right at the end. Yeah. But Firefly fans, they rival any flans. See that fast? Firefly fans, they rival any fans on the planet. You could go, they're probably some of the strongest ones I've ever, And now try and play that board game. I tried it once. I couldn't do it.
All right, we have time for 2 more questions, so go ahead.
If you happen to be channel surfing and you come across, a movie or a show that you're in, do you stop and watch, yourself, in that?
Not so much anymore. It's weird. I used to tell, I have to watch the OC for the podcast now, and I'm watching it like I'm dissecting editing and music, and I kind of get into it, and I giggle and I laugh and all that. But there for a long time, I really love the OC so much that I drink some wine and make people watch it. I'm like, come on, let's go together. Or, but for the longest time, I just didn't even own my movies, and I would watch if it's new. But if something pops up and I'll see it, I won't necessarily go, oh, I'm going to watch myself. But, and that being said, it's because I've already seen it many, 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 many times. But I don't quite seek it out. Let's watch me. No, I haven't, but yes, thank you for the question, but I don't necessarily turn it on right away, yeah. But I don't have a problem watching it. I'm having a problem listening to myself, honestly, on this podcast, because it's me. I'm used to seeing myself as a character, but I'm like, why did you say that? Why did you say, why did you stutter? What the fuck are you talking about? Oh my God. And if you do ever watch it, like, they put 4K cameras on us, and I didn't have the right lighting, and all of a sudden you see fucking pores, and I'm like, what? No. So, don't judge me on that one, sorry.
It's so hard to see yourself on camera and listen to yourself, though.
Without a professional, like, I was like, I need a filter and I need a lighting. Well, I didn't know, and now they're putting it on HBO, and I saw it the other day, and I'm like, oh, it's compressed on YouTube, and on HBO, what? You can see the vein on the fly's wing, and I'm not.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, and you can answer this diplomatically, but you and Rachel talked about Misha Barton's experience on the show, and I got a bit of news. And like, how do you navigate those relationships with your former coworkers, your future coworkers, and still maintain, a sense of normalcy, I guess, and not feel like you're being put on the spot whenever people ask you this question?
It's a good question. I don't know if you guys are aware. So we're doing this rewatch podcast, and Misha has been I can say this because, first of all, I don't like to comment on things that I know nothing about. I can only speak from my truth. In my experience, from what I'm learning though, is I'm here acting on a show, working with somebody right next to me who's having a completely different experience. That's her truth. That's not my truth. So when I will absolutely never negate somebody else's experience. That being said, yes, she explained that, I think Rachel took it a different way. She was kind of bummed to hear that she said that she felt bullied and not protected, and that, I don't know, it seemed to me that she sounded like she was resenting Rachel or something, but the thing is, I don't believe in, we're hearing about the early 2000s, the Lindsays, the Britneys. There was no Instagram and Twitter. They're being told at the age of 17 and 18, you need to go out to these parties. You got publicists and agents, you're the it girl. You're being told you have to go out to these parties, and parties aren't on the weekend in Hollywood. You go out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You go to the Samsung party, you go to the the Gucci party, and you get your picture taken, and that's how you get publicity in these magazines. And the paparazzi want you, and they also cut you down. Now, I had a 3-year-old at home. I wasn't even seeking it out, but I wasn't Misha at 17. And she's there. I do think there's a responsibility for the parents to not, it's like, there's a part of me that's like, you're 17 and it's Hollywood, you've got to take some responsibility for what's out there. But I also, the cautionary tale of young people getting into this, knowing that it's I can only imagine that she had unwanted advances from men, or that there were just things that she felt unprotected about. But, it's not my job to say, what is she talking about? That's not true. Because it very much probably could have been true. But, it's, some people, it's like, were you on time where's your response? I don't want to say she said, I think it's stronger to say, well, I could have been better in these situations. This is my responsibility. This is my part in this. But let it be a cautionary tale to parents and young ladies getting into this industry, because it can really mess with you. And unfortunately, I can only tell you my experience, and clearly her narrative has been that it was not a good experience, and that breaks my heart.
Yeah.
And she's been invited on the podcast, and she hasn't responded.
Okay,
So I would love for her to come on, but I in no way, shape, or form would ever debate her experience.
Oh, yeah.
Because I could sit here and say, it must have been, my experience was kind of Goldilocks. It was great. It was like, just right, but she was the it girl, like the biggest girl in the world. And maybe she made some choices, like the things you're supposed to do when you're 21, like go out and party. Now you're doing, it's like everyone's watching you. So I don't know. It's an unfortunate tale. She wrote that she might be doing some kind of documentary about her life or something. But no, it's kind of heartbreaking.
I really appreciate you answering that question. I really do, because I listened to your podcast, and I agree with you 100%. I think everything you said, it is diplomatic, and it's a bit heartbreaking. You don't know. I hope that she takes you up on it.
My guess is if she's got a story to tell, she doesn't want to waste it on her podcast.
I know, right? Yeah.
But then maybe she'll come on when she has something to promote.
Exactly. She's got the book, and
No, and to be honest, I'm such a gentle soul. Like, I don't want to be controversial. I don't, it's like I was offered. They wanted me to do the Real Housewives of Orange County, and I was like, I do not have the armor. A friend of mine, she represents some of the ladies in publicity. She said no. She said literally the producer's job is they'll do things like they'll pull your ex-husband and just have him show up, or they'll dig into your personal, and I said I don't have the armor to do, and it's that show is such a train, people watch this train wreck, right? And it's designed for me to go, to create drama and my honestly, my mental health, I would end up going cuckoo. I would break. That it's not, put it this way, are we acting in love or fear? It would be all the negative for me.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I know we got to wrap it up here, but last thing, Texas is so much fun. Dallas is a great town. Are you going to get to do anything Dallas or Texas centric? Any beer, barbecue? Get to go out anywhere fun?
Big D, little A, double L, A, yes, Dallas. That's from a musical called The Most Happy Fella. I actually, yes, I'm just so lucky. Some of my dear friends, my Perry Humphreys and his wife and godparents to my daughter, they moved here a few years back, and I haven't seen them in years, so we're gonna go out to dinner. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, we are so happy to have you here with us. Let's give a big, huge round of applause. Love it. And what's been fun is we've been doing like a little selfie with everybody in the background, if you don't mind, and then well, you guys can tag yourselves in it. So if you guys want to stand up, make it all festive. Let's see. And then we can put a filter on.